Tens of thousands are still without power in Iowa after a powerful storm equaling a level 2 hurricane swept across the state. Last Monday's powerful storm, known as a derecho, left a trail of destruction in its path. Look at that. 100-mile-per-hour winds uprooted trees, toppled power lines, and damaged more than 8,000 homes in Iowa. 14 million acres of farmland were leveled, destroying 40% of corn and soybean crops. Officials say at least 4 people were killed. Iowa's governor says total losses to the state are nearly $4 billion, but they are still counting. Well, Liz Lenz, a columnist for the Cedar Rapids Gazette, has been reporting on the recovery efforts and basically living through this. She joins us now from Cedar Rapids. Liz, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me and for talking about this very important issue.
Liz, I got to be honest, I'd never heard the word derecho, which is like this powerful, strange line of storms that does hurricane-type damage. I mean, you guys aren't anywhere near an ocean, but when you look at the damage, it looks like a hurricane went through your state. This was 9 days ago. Describe what it was like.
Well, I had never heard of it either until it came and destroyed my town. So, what it was like was we had no warning. We had very little warning. I work in the news, so theoretically I should have been informed, and all I knew was that a thunderstorm was coming. And because of the pandemic, I've been working out of my house with my children there, and I'm frantically filing for a deadline, and I hear the sirens go off, and my kids are very safety conscious. They beeline it to the basement, but our cat Waffles, he was out, and my kids are like, make sure you save Waffles. And I thought it was a thunderstorm, so I stayed up. I kind of was like looking out on the back patio for Waffles. I go out onto the front porch to look for him, and the next thing I know is there is a tree down. A tree had just fallen over on top of my neighbor's car, and I jump back inside and I start hearing the snap, thump, and it's hitting my house, and I can see it hitting trees, hitting neighbors' houses. I saw, just giant. I live in an old part of town. I saw giant trees just kind of snap in half and fall up with their whole root systems exposed, and pretty soon I wasn't able to see anything because branches fell in front of my window, and I went to the basement and held my kids until it was all over.
Well, please tell us that Waffles is okay.
Yes, Waffles is okay. He is a little hero. He came home right after the rain stopped, I was very grateful
Awesome.
to him for
Well,
surviving.
Well, let me ask you this. You wrote in the Washington Post about the underreporting of this disaster, and honestly, I hadn't heard about it either. Why do you think it hasn't received more national attention?
Well, I think there's a couple things. First of all, was this storm didn't just wipe out communication in my town, it wiped out communications for large parts of the state. People just weren't even able in my city to communicate with each other about the scope and breadth of the damage, much less, garner national media attention. And then the other thing is, all the local reporters on the ground, including myself, we've all been living in disaster and reporting on disaster. I was doing interviews while scrubbing my underwear in my neighbor's front yard in a plastic tub because I've been out without power for almost 10 days now. And and so it's hard to shout out for help when you're barely breathing and surviving. So the other thing is there's a lot going on in the news right now. And so people are just having a hard time focusing. So I don't think anybody's cruel or intentionally trying to ignore Iowa. I just think the scope and breadth of this disaster, it just hasn't been fully impressed upon people because there's just so much going on right now.
Yeah, well, the pictures are breathtaking. The devastation is quite extensive, and our prayers go out to Iowa right now. We thank you so much for sharing your personal story, and glad you and your family are safe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.